Let's talk to an organisation or a representative of an organisation that works tirelessly to expose this kind of, terrible expenditure, this wanton expenditure that we shouldn't be doing. Taxpayers Alliance is the organisation and the representative. We're very pleased to welcome him into the show, William Yarwood. Hello, William.
Good evening, Kev. Thanks for having me back on the show. Great to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Well, look, first of all, we found out yesterday, courtesy of The Sun, about where some of our money was going abroad. Worth pointing out that we have a regular foreign aid budget of £15 billion. This year, our allegedly cash-strapped Labour government increased that by £11.6 billion. So this year, what are we talking about? £27 billion odd going abroad, because they sent an extra £11.6 billion to various developing countries to help them with their green projects, whatever that means. So we know that this money is being wasted. It's never on things like irrigation systems, new schools, new roads, that kind of thing. It's on nonsense like transformative feminist funding in Iraq, on gender disinformation conferences in Kenya, and so on and so forth. So we know the direction that this money heads in, not just abroad, but abroad to woke projects abroad. So I thought we'd take this on and say, well, who the hell is it that makes these decisions about what to do with our money? Because in both terms of the foreign aid budget and the domestic aid budget, whoever is making these decisions are making terrible decisions. They are wasting our money on utter nonsense. And as I said, I looked into the Foreign Aid Committee, and guess what? There's 11 of them, 7 Labour MPs, big surprise, 2 Lib Dems, 2 Tories, and the chair of the Foreign Aid Committee is the legendary former, I think, Shadow Attorney General. That's Emily Thornberry. Now, these people on that committee, they've got some questions to answer, haven't they?
Well, certainly, Kev, they do indeed. Whether Emily Thornberry is going to answer any of them correctly, that's that's up for debate. But I think the answer is probably going to be no, isn't it? But yeah, completely. You mentioned there about it's never spent on any real things, but actually, this is money that could be spent at home on issues we have here. It could be used on the NHS, it could be used for tax cuts, it could be used for the roads, it could be used for a wide variety of things. And in terms of who makes these decisions, it's not just our politicians, it's civil servants inside of Whitehall. So you mentioned UKRI earlier, it's quangos, which have absolutely zero oversight from the British public. And actually, one interesting point I'd like to make is actually none of these aid grants and none of these research grants have ever been mentioned in any manifesto put forward by any politician in any political party, and yet they seem to go through. So actually voters don't vote for this because if they saw them in the manifestos, if MPs at election time had to stand up and say, actually, I think a great use of your cash, folks, is sending it abroad for climate projects in Uganda and Somalia, I don't think they'd get the votes that they've been getting. Do you?
No, I don't. And if we come back domestically, I'm looking at a few things that this UKRI has generously handed out cash to. For example, this is £1.1 million went on storying life courses for intersectional inclusion, ethnicity and well-being across time and place. £1.1 million. Moving online, the ontology and ownership of internet dance, pretty much £200,000, £199, £922. As I said earlier, using AI to connect to LGBTQ and arts communities. Queer natures, this is about queer animals, gay animals, animal environment and modern sexual knowledge production. What the hell does that mean? They got 250,000, $250,000. Critical dance pedagogy through discourse and practice, 78,000, and so on and so forth. It is just astonishing. It's jaw-dropping, this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, that's research re-released with The Sun, and that's just 10 examples. I mean, you listed a number there, but there's actually 10 examples we give. But that's just the tip of a very, very large iceberg, Kev. And more people are waking up to the fact that actually their money is not being used properly on the things that they care about. But actually, on a more deeper point, the reason a lot of this money goes towards those projects is because actually of the ideology that's infested within our state at the moment, which of course is the woke ideology we
Yeah.
talk a lot about. But the reason the woke ideology continues to perpetuate itself, the reason it continues to infest every area of the public sector is it because it's receiving oxygen, and that oxygen is taxpayers' cash. If you strip this money away from these research grants, if you strip this money away from these foreign aid grants, actually you'd find that a lot of these, research projects and a lot of these foreign aid fundings would never get off the floor. They would never get off the floor because no one in their right mind, no normal person anyway, and there's plenty of normal people out there who do not agree with this kind of stuff, would even be remotely interested in looking into this or studying this. So quite frankly, this government's not going to do it, but if they were trying to win back any level of support, they should defund absolutely every single one of these UKR grants and defund absolutely every single one of these foreign aid grants and put this money to better use at home instead of hitting farmers, small businesses and the self-employed.
Yes, and we need really, don't we, an Elon Musk, a Doge, a Department of Government Efficiency, to drive a truck through this nonsense. And I really do think, to come back to my earlier point, I think Emily Thornberry and her committee should start to explain, why it is that we have shelled out £9.5 million to the Congo for something called accountability and inclusion. £5 million on transforming feminist funding in Iraq. Yeah, how's that going, by the way? A great place for women, isn't it? £500,000 on a fleet of electric Porsches for Albanian prisons. And as I said earlier, £133,000 on shrimp health in Bangladesh. When this comes across their desks and they go, oh yeah, tick, what's going through their minds? I think that these MPs, Emily Thornberry and her ilk, we're not just pointing the finger at her, they are sort of drunk on a kind of entitlement that somehow or other they've got our money, we've had to pay our taxes. Trust me, I know. I've just gone bankrupt paying my latest grotesque tax bill. We have to do all this. They don't even give us a second thought, do they? Shrimp health in Bangladesh? Yeah, off you go. They've got to explain why they're doing this. And at the very least, they've got to be stopped in their tracks from any more of this, haven't they? Because as you said, as you implied earlier, William, quite rightly, I mean, in order to save £1.4 billion, they axed the winter fuel allowance. So £1.4 billion would have kept every pensioner warm this this winter. Instead, half of them going to freeze to death because we didn't have the money. Meanwhile, we're sending £9.5 million to the Congo for accountability and inclusion. This isn't just crazy. This isn't just annoying. This is an absolute scandal, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's not just a scandal, actually, Kevin. I'd say it's actually pretty immoral, considering what they're doing to farmers, considering what they're doing to the self-employed, considering what they're doing to pensioners. And yet, like you said, they're funneling money abroad in this way. And you're right when they get these pieces of paper and they go tick, they are drunk on a kind of entitlement. That's not just about, oh, well, it's actually our money now. It's actually the government's money. It's nothing to do with taxpayers anymore. It's in our pocket and we're going to use it the way we see fit. It's actually their false belief that actually doing these kind of projects gives Britain soft power on the world stage, that somehow various countries are going to love us more if we give them money for trans inclusion stuff or climate aid. But actually what it proves, Kev, is that we are a soft touch, because when these countries have foreign criminals in our country, when these people are coming over on small boats into our country, we should actually be using foreign aid as a way to say, actually, in order to make sure that people don't come over here in small dinghies, in order to make sure that actually you take your foreign criminals back, is we're going to withdraw every single penny of taxpayers' cash from you, from the British public, and say no more foreign aid spending until you take your foreign criminals back, until you take your illegal immigrants back, and only then might you possibly have it back.
And why are we, for example, handing £114 million to India, the world's largest democracy, an industrial superpower, and a country that has its own space program? Why are we giving them £114 million, you think, William?
Delusional nonsense and soft power again. I mean, we give money to Pakistan as well, which, you know, has dubious relations with us as well. We're a soft touch, Kev, quite frankly, and our political class are obsessed, and not just with the idea of, you know, going to foreign conferences and saying nice things about how much they've invested in, you know, climate projects in the third world and so on and so forth. But what they should care about is Brits at home, because that is the duty of politicians, isn't it? It's to look after the people in your own country first, not the world. And to be quite frank with you, these people need to be brought to heel, because this stuff is only going to get worse.
Do you happen to know who makes these decisions on the part of what I've discovered only today is called the United Kingdom Research and Innovation Department, UKRI. I mean, that's our money, and that organisation somehow spreads it around, you know, to fund important studies into TikTok dancing and how that was affected by the COVID lockdowns. I mean, who makes those decisions?
Well, UKRI is actually another quango. That's right, it's another quango. It's an unelected group of bureaucrats deciding where the money should go. But of course, it's not their money, it's taxpayers' money, and they don't really care, because, you know, they're a non-governmental organisation with only you know, a little bit of reach from the Department for Education. So quite frankly, UKRI actually needs to be brought back into the Department of Education, completely scrapped, and every single bureaucrat in there fired, because what they're doing is they're wasting millions upon billions of pounds of taxpayers' cash on useless woke projects that have no place in our society.
Yeah, let's get that straight. You and I, we the last 20 minutes or so, we're not talking about millions of pounds. We're talking about billions and billions of pounds. 15 billion on our normal foreign aid budget. A lot of people would say in this time of cost of living crisis, people struggling to get by, why on earth are we sending any money at all abroad? But that's 15 billion. And this year, of course, our cash-strapped government, we've got no money, you know, financial black hole, 22 billion, 11.6 billion quid across the water, send it to some developing countries, you know, for what? You know, green stuff. Oh, yeah. So 27 billion this year, 8 billion at home. These are mega amounts of money, of our money, and these politicians, these MPs, these committee chiefs, these committee members are squandering it on abject nonsense.
Yeah, completely. But it's not just the politicians here. It's the civil service. It's the wider public sector, which is infested by this kind of woke ideology. And actually, you need to do a big clear them out of them all, in my opinion. You need to get rid of a lot of them. And you mentioned Elon Musk's Doge there. If the government's interested in, you know, getting rid of a lot of this spending, they can just call the Taxpayers Alliance up.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank God we got you lot, William. Seriously, great work on all of this, because the public has a right to know. And I just hope that the fury with which this nonsense has been met on the part of the public, you know, bears some fruit, that we are rewarded by a more sensible system, that hopefully the politicians will see that now that we know about this stuff, it just is not acceptable. We are not going to let you do this anymore. I fear, however, they'll probably try and just trundle on doing their nonsense. But you never know. And great work by you guys. And thank you so much for coming on. William Yarwood from the Taxpayers Alliance.